Morning everyone, Dr. Dirk here. This morning I'm going to be doing a 101 on LED whip lights for everything that you ever wanted to know about these awesome new accessories. First thing is, what is an LED light whip? In basic terms, an LED light whip is just an LED light strip fixed to some sort of flexible device. There's two main types. You obviously got your straight whip lights, which is just a straight strip within a tube, or you've got your helix wound whip lights, which is the more common ones and the ones that we sell here at Aussie Power Sports. First part of the construction process is obviously the center shaft on the LED light whip. Now with these guys, bigger is better. There's two reasons why. Obviously, a skinnier center shaft is going to give you a whip that's going to flex around like a floppy noodle, but also the bigger diameter shaft, the more winds that you're going to get on that LED light strip, the more lights you're going to get per meter of whip that you have. So bigger center shaft, you're going to get a brighter whip, and also a bit of a more durable and stronger whip. So the next thing you're going to be looking for in LED light whips is what LED chips are present in the strip of your whip. If you're familiar with LED light bars, you might know brands like Cree, Osram. Not so much common in LED light whips. However, you still need to make sure that the chip is for a quality manufacturer. Aussie Power Sports whips, we use San Optoelectronics, which is China's biggest and most reputable LED chip manufacturer. With the individual chips themselves, we use 5050 LED chips. And what that is that's a 5mm by 5mm LED chip with 3 light emitting diodes within the chip itself. If you're going to be looking for any type of whip that has nice, vivid, bright colors, you're going to want this type of chip. You're not going to want one that has individual smaller chips that do the different colors. You're going to want something that does it all within the one diode, and you can see with the Dream Whips or the RGBs, you get a really bright, vivid color from the 5050 LED chips. Another really important consideration for LED light whips is going to be the wiring and base connections. So these are definitely not all created equal, and you've got to be really, really careful to make sure that you get a good quality one. What you want to look for is, like on this whip here, is a separate wiring connection from the side of the whip. Some of the whips have the wiring connection within the shaft, which whilst it looks better from an aesthetics perspective, when you've got the flex and all the tension of the whip going onto that, it's very, very easy to break those electrical connectors. So you want to look for a side mounted wiring harness with also some twist lock, waterproof, good quality connections, so it makes the disconnect easy. This type of whip's going to mount into a very, very solid base. So you can see there's an additional spring on this one because it's a double wrap whip, so it's a little bit heavier than the traditional one. But you want to get good quality base, easy, quick disconnect with the side wiring connection. That's what you want to be looking for on any light whips you purchase. Once you've figured out you've got a quality wiring connection and base connection on your whip, the next thing you're going to want to be looking at is what the outer casing of the whip is. A lot of whips will just have a heat shrink, which would be called like a single wrap whip. So you're going to have your inner core with your helix wrapped around with resin, should be a resin coated waterproofing on your LED light strip, and then there'll be a heat shrink type material that goes on the outside. And that's fine for most purposes, but if you're going to be wanting a really, really heavy duty whip, you may want to go to look at what's called a double wrap whip. So you're going to get the exact same finish up to the heat shrink part, but then there's also an additional polycarbonate tube that's added on the outside, which adds an extra layer of protection, extra layer of waterproofing, but it's going to be what you want to look for if you're going to be going into areas where you're going to get a lot of hits on the whip, like tight timber, forested areas, that sort of thing. You may want to look at a double wrapped whip. If you break the LED light strip at any point, obviously it's going to kill half the whip. So the extra investment of that additional outer casing can really save you some money in the long term. Another really important thing to check with your LED light whips is obviously going to be IP rating. So that's your dust and waterproof rating. You want one as high as possible. The ones that we sell at Aussie Power Sports are IP67 rated, which means they're dust tight, and they also can be immersed in water up to a metre and still operate. So the higher the IP rating, obviously the better quality the whip. You get a really low quality whip with a low IP rating. If you get any sort of water penetrate that outer housing, it's obviously going to damage your whip and cost you a lot of money in the long term. If I covered most of the technical aspects that you want to look for in a whip, the next thing is obviously going to be, what do you want the whip to look like? So really, in terms of the side-by-side whip market, you'll probably see most of them are going to be either called RGB or Dream. So the difference there is an RGB light can cover 256 colours, a Dream's going to be able to colour 356. So if you look at the whips we have here, we have an RGB followed by a Dream whip, followed by an RGB, followed by a Dream whip. So the Dream's obviously going to be able to get that much more vivid colour range, and generally the Dream whips have much more functionality in terms of like the apps that you can use, and you're going to be able to get a better settings, better functionality out of the Dream whips, which is why they're more expensive. But the RGB whips, if you just want a single color whip, they're much cheaper. If you want an RGB, it's still going to be able to do a lot of different settings, but the pick of the crop is obviously the Dream whip color. Brightest, biggest range of colors. So there, if you want the most functionality, you're going to want to look at a Dream whip. Different manufacturers of whips are going to obviously have different Bluetooth compatible apps that are going to link with that whip. A lot of the whips will come with a separate remote control, but the best way to control them is through a Bluetooth app. So it's interesting if you want to look at the reviews of what the app can do. Like I said before, RGBs tend to be a little more simple, whereas the Dream have a much greater functionality of whip. So when you're looking at an RGB whip app control like this one here, you can see that there's certain functionality to control your colors. You've got functions in terms of the crossfade, what gradients you want, the speed of that grade. Usually you can have a disco setting, something that'll pick up the music functionality. This one here will pick it up off your phone. It doesn't have it built into the Bluetooth app itself. And also some of them will link into like Apple Music or that type of thing. So fairly basic in terms of what the functionality on this RGB app control is. If you look across at a Dream whip functionality, you can see here we've got a lot more different types of settings that you can choose from. You've got full music pickup that comes with the wiring harness, which is an optional extra on some whips. But you're going to get a lot more color choice, color functionality and everything with the sort of Dream whip. And the more sophisticated your app is, the better functionality that you're going to get as you change those functions on your whip. My personal favorites obviously have used the music settings, and it's going to pick up sound based on when you're talking or with the music. It's going to pulse to that sort of beat. So that's really, really cool feature that's great for any type of party. Another thing that you're probably going to want to look for in your whips with your apps is what wiring harness comes with the whip. Is it just a basic wiring harness? Some whip companies have available additional wiring harnesses like this one here, which is going to pick up your brake light function, indicator function, and it's also got that independent music pickup so you can mount it anywhere in your UTV. So that's going to give you the most functionality, and it's really cool when you go along, if your whip's flashing with your indicator or the brake lights are coming on, it's really visible at night for safety aspects as well. So have a look at what functionality comes with the wiring harness as standard, and if there are expansion wiring harnesses available on your whips. So that's about it for the technical aspects of the LED light whips. If you've got any questions, just pop them in the YouTube comments below the video. We're also going to have a quick buyer's guide, which more talks about the functionality and colors of the ones that we sell here at Aussie Power Sports. If you have any questions, you can either call the team at Aussie Power Sports or jump online, www.aussiepowersports.com.au for all your side-by-side accessories. We've also got stockists all over Australia, which you can see on the website, so check them out as well. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Until next time, ride hard and stay safe.